Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on the location that you are listening from, right? My name is Abdul Kodri and I work for Lasus CBT 18 Limited. So as a network and system administrator. So, and I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, right? So now welcoming everybody to this episode of webinar series. So our topic for today is how you can kickstart your cloud computing career, right, with Microsoft Azure. But I would love you guys, before we can jump into today's discussion, right, I would love you guys to take a snapshot of the agenda, look what the agenda looks like, right? So now here is our agenda for today. The first thing is that I would love the audience to understand the concept of the buzzword, which is cloud computing, right? By starting with a very short scenario, right? So I'll start with a very short scenario. So now, what is a cloud computing? So let's say Paul think of starting his own business, right? So a business that maybe he wants to build a website or an application, right? So just like a kind of an online payment platform, you understand? So maybe let's say PayPal, Remitter, OPay, and so on and so forth. So to be consumed, right, by customers 24 hours a day, right? Maybe 7 days a week, right? So, you know, when Paul puts pen to paper, he discovered that there are some factors or maybe some components that needed to be to be put into consideration. Maybe before starting his business, or maybe after starting the business. So part of the components that part of the components are listed below, right? So the first one is that you think of buying a powerful machine. So automatically, if Paul wants to start his own business, he needs to put some powerful machines in place, such as servers, right? Maybe some kind of storage devices. Then we have dedicated network too as well, right? Then the second thing that I need to consider is that he needs to consider the fact that I need to put some kind of cooling machines, right? You know, when you deploy your powerful machine, there needs to be cooling too as well, right? It needs to put in place some kind of cooling system. Then the third one that Paul think of, right, when he was trying to put pen to paper is that he needs to get a very competent developer, you know, someone that needs to either build the application or maybe the website too as well. Not just ordinary developer, a competent one, right? Then the fourth one too as well is that the hours of service. So hours of service that the application or maybe the website needs to be running. So like he planned, right? He planned that the application should be running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, and you know, it means that Paul needs a stable electricity, right? Paul needs a stable electricity. And we all know that this country, we don't have that kind of, there is no guarantee for the stable electricity. So automatically, it means that Paul needs a backup generator, or maybe he can either go for a solar, right? A solar that will power the machine that is running the kind of application or maybe the website that is trying to perform. Then the fifth consideration is that which is even the most important one, right, is the security of the application. So as we all know that these days in this internet era, so there is nothing is safe on the internet, right? So automatically, it will need to put in place some kind of security mechanism, right, that is going to protect the application, right? So, and such as firewall, right, to protect the application from an external threat or maybe an intruder, right? Then the sixth one, which is the last one, which is not the second to the last, right, is the maintenance team. So Paul needs to get a competent maintenance team that will handle unforeseen circumstances of the business, so that it will prevent the business from shutting down. Then the last one, right, is more equipment for scalability. So as let's say Paul was able to start up the business with the aforementioned, right? The aforementioned criteria, or maybe the what is called, or maybe the factors to consider. So it means that as time goes on, right? When his business started growing, right? So he needs to plan on getting additional devices too as well, right? To handle maybe more traffic coming from the what? Coming from the application. So these are the list of or the kind of factors that Paul sketch out when to start, because if he needs to start this business, so he needs to look at this consideration, he needs to look at these factors, right? He needs to consider all those factors. So now, so putting all those factors into consideration, when Paul puts those factors into consideration, he realizes that it's a kind of expensive, right? It's very, very expensive to put all those things individually in place. And it's very risky on the other hand that if the application is unpopular, right? If the application is unpopular, or maybe is not standard enough for the customers to consume, right? So he will definitely lose the money. That's what it means, right? So if the application is not standard enough, it means that he's going to either lose the money, right? The money he invested. So in order for Paul to overcome all these listed challenges, right? All these listed bottlenecks, right? This is where the concept of what? The concept of cloud computing came into what? Came into rescue, right? To offload all those challenges so that Paul, or maybe the customers, can focus more on their what? On their business growth. Now, what is cloud computing, right? Which is what we need to look at. So what is cloud computing? So now, the very first question that might come into that might come across everybody's mind is that what cloud is all about, right? So well, I have a great news. There is no cloud. There's nothing like cloud, right? So it's just someone else's computer, or maybe let's say a data center hosted on the internet, right? So now the answer to that question is the question, which is cloud computing, is that cloud computing is just a technology, right, that provide access to what? Various computing services or maybe resources over the internet, right? So what are these computing services or maybe resources over the internet? So they include compute, right, such as virtual machine. So maybe you are somebody that wants to run wants to have like a replica of of your machine, right, that you are having, maybe the one you are using now. You want to have a replica with a cloud service provider, right? We call it a virtual machine. Then we have power too as well, right? Power, because power needs to power those machines that are running the application. Then we have storage, we have databases, then we even have network too as well. Then we have software, analytics, and so on and so forth. So all you need to do is to use your what? Is to use your device, or maybe let's say a computer, right, to connect to your cloud service provider, right? Cloud service provider. So now, once you connect to your cloud service provider through internet, so you have access, right? You have access to all the computing resources based on your need. So depending on whatsoever service, or maybe depending on whatsoever resources that you want to consume, right, over the maybe from your cloud provider, all you need to do is to connect to your internet through your what? Your mobile device or maybe your computer, right? So that's in a nutshell what cloud, or maybe the concept of cloud computing, is all about. So now we said cloud computing, right? So the question now is, who are those people that are providing what? That are providing these cloud services, right? Who are those people that are providing the cloud service? Who are the cloud service provider, right? So we said, which is the second question, right? Cloud service provider are just a company, or maybe let's say an individual that provide information technology. I hope you guys can hear me, please. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay, yeah, that's great.
Yes,
so I said cloud service provider. You said what? Somebody is talking.
We can hear you. Don't
Hello?
worry. Nobody's talking.
Okay, okay, yeah, that's great. So now we said cloud service provider are just a company, right, that provide information technology as a service, right? So they provide all these cloud service offering over the internet. So who are these company, right? We said they provide different computing services based on customers' need, right? So what are these services? We have such as infrastructure as a service, right? We have platform as a service, which is called PaaS. Then we have software as a service too, right? So then we said that the cloud service provider include AWS, right? So AWS, the full meaning of AWS is what? As you can see on the slide, right? We have, let me take a pen. We have AWS, right? Then we have Microsoft Azure too as well. But AWS has been in the market for a very long time and is one of the most common or most popular used platform, right? So, but now we have different cloud computing provider. So we have Microsoft Azure, right? We have GCP too as well, which is Google Cloud Platform. So we have, let's say, DigitalOcean, we have IBM, and so on and so forth. So these are the people, right? Or maybe these are the company that came, right, to rescue Paul, right? To rescue Paul, to offload all the bottleneck and maybe the challenges that he might have starting up his business, right? So they've taken care of what? They've taken care of power, right? So Paul doesn't need to worry about powering the device, right? So he has taken care of what? They have taken care of security and so on and so forth, right? So now we've discussed about the cloud service, right? So now our main focus, or maybe the main objective of this webinar, is we are focusing on Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Azure, which is one of the leading cloud service provider, right? So it's one of the most leading cloud service provider. So what is Microsoft Azure? You guys might be wondering, right? What is Microsoft Azure? So Microsoft Azure, right? Let me quickly have this somebody. So Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform, or maybe let's say an online portal which is owned, right, and managed, or maybe operated by Microsoft, right, to provide this cloud service offering, right? So Microsoft Azure, so what are these service offerings? We have storage, right? We have compute services, right? We have networking, we have databases, people are coming in. So we have databases and we have intelligence and so on and so forth. So this depends on the customer's need. So whatsoever service that you want to consume, right, on your cloud service provider. So you have it there already. So all you need to do is just to connect your device to the internet, leverage on their portal, then you are good to go. So, and let's discuss about maybe like a brief history about Azure, right? So Azure was first launched, right, on February 10th, February 1st, 2010, right? So, and is significantly its main competitor, which is the AWS and the GCP. But the AWS has been in the market for a very long time, right? But now Microsoft Azure and GCP, they came to be like a competition in the market now. So when you look at the trend, right? When you look at the trend from maybe let's say 2020, right? You see that Microsoft Azure, right, has overshadowed the AWS. So people are getting known, right, of Microsoft Azure. So now, what are the services, right? What are the services provided by provided by Microsoft Azure? So let's see some of the services, right, provided by Microsoft Azure. So they are categorized into two, right? So the first one is we have service model, right? Then we have deployment model. So let's take it one after the other. So what is this service model? So we have like 3 different services provided under the service model. So the first one is software as a service. So we call that SaaS. So what is this software as a service? So on cloud computing platform, so let's say Azure, for instance, right? So they have some kind of kind of software that are already in place that a customers can just leverage on. So e.g. email service, right? Or maybe let's say Microsoft 365, maybe Dynamics 365. You know, it's not the customer that owns this service, right? It's your cloud provider. So they provided this software so that customers can consume it. So that's a perfect example of what? Software as a service. Then the second one is the platform as a service, right? Hello, can you hear me, please? Are we all on the same page? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello? Hello, can you all hear me, please? So that can anyone say something, please?
We can hear you, yes.
Say what?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, that's right. Yes, that's it. So then the second one is platform as a service, right? What is this platform as a service? So let's take for instance too as well. Let's say Microsoft Azure, right? There are some kind of platform that are already in place. Whereby, let's take for instance, you are a developer, or maybe let's say you are a software, you are a programmer rather, right? And you want to run some kind of coding or maybe some scripts on Azure portal, right? So you have a platform whereby that is already made, right? So that you can automatically run your code. Do you understand, right? So you can automatically run your code from Azure platform. Then we have infrastructure as a service. So what is the infrastructure as a service? So there are some kind of infrastructure, right, that has been provided by your cloud service provider. So let's take for instance, right, we have operating system. So you want to run a virtual machine, or maybe you want to have like a replica of your computer hosted online, right? Maybe on Azure portal. So you know the ISO and everything that you want to use is like an infrastructure. So if you want to configure such kind of virtual machine, you will be the ones to specify, right? To specify the kind of configuration that you want. Maybe you want Windows operating system, right? Maybe you want Linux operating system, or maybe you want Mac, and so on and so forth. Different kind of. So you are the one to provide that. So it means that the cloud service provider, they've provided this infrastructure so that you can leverage on as a customer, right? Then the second category, or maybe the second option, is the deployment model. So under the deployment model, right, we have a public cloud, we have private cloud. Somebody is saying something, please. So there's a noise somewhere. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hello, can you all hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you. Continue, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have public cloud too as well. We have private, then we have hybrid. So what is a public cloud? So public cloud is also a service that has been provided, right, by your cloud service provider. So whereby anybody can have access to, right? So let's take for instance, Microsoft Azure, right, is a public cloud, right? Because anybody can just go there, consume whatsoever services that you want to consume. So the only thing you need to do is just to connect to their portal, right? Then we have private cloud. So what is the private cloud? So this is mainly focused on enterprise, or maybe let's say a company. So let's say for instance, a company wants to like have a kind of virtual machine, right? They want to have like a kind of local virtual machine, you know, and they don't want to run it on their data center. They want to run it maybe in the cloud, right? So it means they can leverage on Microsoft Azure. Then Microsoft Azure will provide like a private cloud, like a private domain to them, so that they can run whatsoever virtual machine or maybe whatsoever resources that they want to run. Then we have the hybrid too as well. So what is this hybrid cloud? So hybrid cloud is the combination of private and public. So let me give you a perfect example. So now let's say a company wants to host an application inside their private cloud, right? So they have a private cloud hosted with a service, sorry, a cloud provider rather, right? So, and they want to run an application, maybe on one of the virtual machine, or maybe a Windows server running in the cloud. They want to host that virtual machine. So automatically, if they host or maybe they deploy the application inside that private, right? And they also want the customers to as well. They want the customers to consume that application. You can see that they have it hosted in a private cloud. Then also what they launch the application publicly so that company or maybe the customers can consume too as well. So you can see they have a private, then they have an application hosted for customers to consume too. So that's a very perfect example of what? A perfect example of a hybrid cloud. So having said that, right? So what are the benefits, right? We might be wondering, why is it that I need to leverage on Microsoft Azure? Why is it that unique? Why is it that different, right? So there are some benefits, right? There are some benefits that you derive or maybe that you gain when you leverage on Microsoft Azure. So there are a lot of benefits, right? So the first one is that Microsoft Azure is free to start with, right? And they offers pay as you go pricing model. So this is telling us that the very first time you open your Azure account, right? Maybe you open your Mac or your Azure account, you have a 30 days free access, right? To consume any of their services. And you only also pay for whatsoever services, right? That you consume on their platform. So after maybe your 30 days has expired, so you only pay, right? You only pay for a token, right? You only pay a token for whatsoever services that you consume on their platform. So that's a very good one, right? So I can leverage on Azure. So starting for free is that they are using that to water your appetite, right? Just to test some of, when you first launch, maybe let's say you have a product, right? That you first launch. You want people to take a sample, right? Take a test so they can test, then give you like a feedback on that product. Maybe it's either good or maybe it's bad, right? So this applies to Microsoft Azure too as well, and some of the cloud service platform as well. So when you first start, maybe when you first open the account, they will give you like a free 30 days to have access to all their services, so that it can water your appetite, right? You can see, okay, maybe after the 30 days, you can continue leveraging on their portal, or maybe you can just look for an alternative, right? So that's another thing. Then the second one is that they lower your operating cost, right? So leveraging on Microsoft Azure too as well helps you to save huge amount of money, right? Because compared to the on-premises data center, or maybe let's say, yes, on-premises data center, because you'll be worried, right? When you have maybe let's say your application hosted on your database, data center, it means that you need to worry about the power, right? The cooling system, right? You need to worry about when the application needs to scale and your server can't accommodate the traffic. It means you have to worry about buying more servers. That's what it means, right? So it doesn't give you that headache, right? Then the third one is the reliability, right? So the reliability on Microsoft Azure. So when you run your infrastructure, right, on Microsoft Azure, right, they helps you run it more efficiently or effectively, right? So no need to worry about the downtime. Maybe the application goes, or maybe the server goes off, right? Or maybe any unforeseen circumstances too as well, or maybe any kind of unforeseen circumstances. Then the first benefit is that it gives room for auto scaling, right? So what is this auto scaling? So maybe you are able to start your business, right? You are able to start your business running it on your data center, and as time goes on, you know that the business will keep growing, right? Maybe let's say you hosted an application, more customers will keep using the application, and if the server that you hosted the application on, right, cannot handle the traffic, it means that the customers will be experiencing a kind of slowness, right? Maybe from the application, maybe they'll be experiencing some kind of bad experience. So, but when you leverage on Azure, it gives you a room to scaling, right? So if you launch your application with Microsoft Azure, so there is a room for auto scaling. You don't need to worry about buying more servers so that it can be able to handle the traffic from the application. So the room for auto scaling is another benefit to look at from Microsoft Azure too as well. Then they offer 99.9% of what security of all your resources too as well. So compared to your on-premises data center, whereby you need to buy firewall to put firewall in place so that it can prevent the application from an external threat. So you don't need to do that when you leverage on Microsoft Azure, because there is a security mechanism there. There is a security feature that protects all your resources that you are running on Microsoft Azure, right? Then the last one is that disaster recovery, right? So if you don't need to worry about if anything goes down or maybe if anything goes wrong, right? So automatically Azure has been deployed or configured in such a way that when one server goes down, right, automatically another one will pick up, and the customers won't feel that effect at all. They won't feel that kind of problem. They won't feel it at all because it has been configured in such a way that everything has been looped and it has been joined together, right? So now the next thing is that I hope you guys are here. I hope everybody can hear me very well.
Sure, we can.
Hello? Hello, can you all hear me, please?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay. So now the next thing we are going to look at is we are going to look at some of the we are going to look at Microsoft Azure Roadmap, right? So we are going to look at where you need to start your Azure journey or how you need to start it, right? So most people do ask me this common and beautiful question that they want to learn Azure, right? So where should they start, right? Or where can they start? So my very answer to that question is that to kickstart their cloud computing career, right, with Microsoft Azure, they need to identify their roles first, right? So they need to identify the roles. Maybe identifying role means that maybe you want to become an Azure administrator, or maybe you want to be Azure developer, or maybe Azure data analyst, or maybe architect, right? Depending on whatsoever roles that you want to make impact, right? So now, once you are able to identify your role, right, you can now start your Azure journey with a very first certification on Microsoft Azure Roadmap. So now let's take a very glance view at this certification roadmap, right? So there are 3 levels, right? So there are 3 levels for Microsoft Azure certification part. So the certification course that you need to get started with is called Microsoft Azure Fundamental, right? AZ900, right? So Azure Fundamental is a course, right, for a beginner, or maybe let's say the basic level to start your cloud computing career with, right? So because is mainly this AZ900 is mainly designed for an individual who do not have like a technical background too as well, right? And there is no prerequisite for you to earn this certification, though it's optional, right? It's optional, but it's better to have the experience, right? It's better to have the experience, right? So this course will eventually give you or maybe fetch you AZ900 certificate. And the very cool thing about this course, or maybe about Microsoft, is that the cost is very minimal, right, compared to other certification, and it depends on the different countries too as well. So you can compare the price, right? There is a now price, or maybe for US, right, with Nigeria. So the price varies, right? So it depends on the country. Then the second thing is that there is also a deal, right, with from Microsoft, in the sense that if you attend like any kind of Azure virtual training event, right, which is a virtual event, right? So it's just a 2 days instructor-led training. So you'll be eligible to for free Microsoft Azure voucher, right? To take any, or maybe you want to take AZ900 for instance. So you'll be eligible to for this voucher. They will give you AZ900 voucher, and this applies to most of the Microsoft fundamental courses too as well. So such as DP now, which is data. We have PL, which is Power Platform Fundamental. We have AI, and so on and so forth. So that's another cool thing too, right? Then, so let's assume that you are able to earn your AZ900 certification, right? Then you can progress to the next level, known as associate level, as you can see on the screen, right? You can progress to the associate level. So which is like an intermediate level, or maybe for somebody that have the skills already, right? So now this is where you can define your roles too. So maybe this is where you can define your role. Maybe you want to be a developer, you want to be Azure administrator, or maybe you want to go for security, or maybe you want to maybe you want to go for DP, right? So depending, like I've said, you have to identify the role first, right? So once you are able to identify your role, then you are good to go, right? So now you can gain any of this when you pass what is it called? Sorry, I think my slide. So you can gain any of this. You can take, let's take a glance view, right? Let's take a glance view at Microsoft. Sorry, I think so we can gain any of this certification when you pass your AZ900, right? After earning the associate level, right? Then you can maybe you want to upgrade, right? You want to upgrade your skill, so maybe to the expert level. As you can see, we have something called DevOps, right? So maybe you are able to do your developer AZ203, then, or maybe you do your, maybe let's say AZ104, which has been upgraded now to 104 instead of 103, right? 103 has been retired, so it's now 104. So once you end this, right, automatically you can progress to what? To the developer stage, which is the expert level, right? So that's that about Microsoft role-based certification, right? So now the next thing we are going to look at is that we are going to look at some of the various job roles, right? When you are Azure certified, right? So what kind of job can you use when you are certified as an Azure? Maybe you are certified as Azure, right? So you can, there are some jobs, right? There are some job roles that you need to leverage on. So the first one is we have Microsoft Azure Administrator. So look at the breakdown here. So Microsoft as an Azure Administrator, so you need to, the minimum salary, right? Which is the annual. This is not monthly, right? This is not monthly. This is annual. So the annual salary for Azure Administrator is starting from $80,000 to what? To $125. Though depending on the skills or maybe the level of experience, right? So if you have, Nigeria? You say what?
Can you say the salary in Naira? Can you tell us in Naira? Because this one is in US dollars.
Yes, in US dollars. So it's about, if it's in a month, right? It's about maybe $1,800 and something dollars. So when you convert that, right? So it's about maybe 300 or maybe let's say 500,000 in a month, right? That's okay, yes, that's 500,000. You say what?
I said thank you.
Okay, yeah. So you work on. So now let's look at the second one, which is the developer too as well. So a developer, an Azure developer, earn 115, starting from $115,000. That's annual, right? So, and it depends on the what? The level of experience. So if you have like maybe starting from 2 years or 3 years experience, your salary is starting from maybe let's say $80,000, $100,000, right? Then we have the solution architects too as well. So starting from 130 to 190. Then we have Azure architect, Azure consultants, right? So starting from $50,000 to what? $80,000. Then we have DevOps rather. So which is the integration of what developer and the operator, right? So their minimum annual earnings, right, is 125 to 185. Then we have security. You can see how those salaries are like mind-blowing, right? But it's just that it works too as well. But it's something that anybody can just do. Anybody can be this, right? So when we have data scientists too as well, we have AI, then we have data engineer. So that's about their annual salary earnings too. So the next thing we are going to look at is the Q&A. So let's see if we have like a kind of questions, right, from the audience so that we can provide a very good answers to that. So far, so good. So maybe let's, Mr. D. So maybe if we have like a kind of question from the audience, let's take in the questions. Hello.
Wow.
Is there any questions?
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me? That was really, really mind blowing. I think
yes,
I can
hear you from here, Mr. D.
Okay. Does anybody have any question to ask our instructor?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, good morning. My name is Dukwe from Abuja. Quick question. Must you complete the fundamentals exam before you proceed to the intermediate level? So for example, if you want to do maybe Azure security, must you first write that exam before you are now allowed to write the next exam, or you can just go for that one directly without writing the fundamentals exam?
Yes, thank you very much. That's a very beautiful question. For me, right, it's advisable, right, to take the fundamental part, though it's not compulsory, right, because it's optional, but it's advisable in the sense that you should have the experience, right, have the knowledge, what the fundamental part is going to entail, right? You know, if that gives you an insight, so you know that you prepare your mind towards the next level. So it's advisable, but it's not compulsory. I hope that answers the question.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So any other question?
Any other question?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, what's your name?
I am Possible from Umuahia, Abia State.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to ask,
Welcome
please.
on the show.
Thank you very much. I want to ask, the certification, does it have a timeline? Like most of the IT certifications have timeline of maybe like 2-3 years. Does this certification, any of these certifications have a kind of a timeline before it expires?
Yes, definitely.
Like, what is the
Okay, yes. Okay, you are still talking. Okay, continue, please.
I said, what is the timeline? As in, like, what is the timeline?
Okay. I thought you were still talking. So that's another very beautiful question too as well, right? So for Azure Fundamental, right? So Azure Fundamental is just 2 years. So it has the timeline. So it's valid for 2 years. Do you understand? So then maybe after that 2 years, you can just do a renewal, right? Does that answer the question?
Yes. What about the associate and other? Is yours still also 2 years?
I am struggling to hear you, please. I can't hear you very well.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, you said the fundamental is 2 years. So I'm asking for other levels of the certification. Is it still also 2 years?
Yes, those ones too. That applies to the same thing. It applies to all the certification. It's 2 years.
So, sir, excuse me, I still have one more question.
You say what?
Okay, I still have one more question. With the
okay, please go ahead.
With the Azure Fundamental, can I be open to opportunities? Can I have like opportunities in the cloud practitioner space with just the fundamental certification?
I can't hear. I'm struggling to hear you, please. I can't hear you well. I think your network is somehow poor.
All right. Can you hear me now?
You know what? Can you type inside the chat box here so that we can we can see what you are trying to say. I can't hear you very well. I'm struggling to hear you, please.
Oh, all right.
You can use the chat bot. You can drop it inside the chat bot. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So any other question, please, before we proceed? Okay, I think in the absence of no question, right? Mr. D, over to you. So we would like to introduce some, yeah. Mr. D, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
You say what? Yes, I can hear you, but
can you hear me, sir?
Breaking.
Okay. Thank you, our speaker, Mr. Cody. Thank you very, very much for the enlightening information you just passed across about Azure. It was really enlightening. And to everybody else, I would like to say thank you for your time and everything and for listening in. For this month, we have our guaranteed to run courses, which I would like everyone to make use of this opportunity. For guaranteed TOGAF 9.2, IT actual level 1 and 2. We have Microsoft Office 2016. We have ISO 9001, which is lead implementer. We have SO IAC 27001, which is lead implementer also. Please do not miss these opportunities. Now they will be coming up in 2 sections, and section 1 will be from February 21 to February 23, while the second section will start from February 28 to March 2nd. Please, all these trainings we hold at our GRA office, which is at Ikeja. Please do not miss this opportunity. You're bound to get your money's worth. Please do not miss this opportunity. Like I said once again, these training programs will hold in 2 sections, and they will start from February 21 to February 23rd, while the second session will start from February 28 to March 2nd. Please do not miss out on these opportunities. Now you can reach out to us on the following numbers, which will also be posted on the web chat box. You can reach out to Mrs. Fola on 081 757 42127 090 80318696. I repeat once again, 081 757 42127 and 090 80318696. For any inquiries or any other question, please, I am here to answer any other inquiries. Mr. Quadri, are you online?
Yes, I'm still here, please.
Okay. Please, if you still have any inquiries or questions, please, we're here to answer them. Please just let me know if we have any other inquiries from anybody. Any other questions from anybody else?
Hello, hello. I have a question here.
Okay, Mr. Timothy.
Okay, yes. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Quadri, for this.
Please.
Thank you for this.
Thank you very much.
My own is simple. I would love to attend the training, and if there's anyone that is available currently, I'm in Lagos, just let me know so that I can plan for it. I'm a worker, and I wouldn't mind if it can be scheduled for weekend. If you have any training going on for weekend on this Azure. I've already been trained on. I've gone through the fundamentals on Azure, but I would like to upscale the skills, the exposure more further. So let me know if you have any training upcoming on Azure. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. D. So
yes,
let me take it over from here, right? So okay. I have some questions from the chat box, right? I think I've answered Timothy, right? Timothy Apata. So I've answered his question. So concerning this one, so we have this particular training, right? Microsoft Azure Fundamental AZ900. So it's starting on the February 28th, right? to 2nd of March 2021, right? Sorry, 2022 rather. So I dropped a number right inside the chat bot, or maybe don't worry, we'll reach out to you concerning that, Mr.
Timothy.
What's the name again? Mr. Timothy, right?
Mr. Timothy. Yes,
Is it
sir.
Timothy? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So we'll get back to you
Yeah,
on that.
Timothy.
By God's grace. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that. So, but it's a class coming up February 28th to what is just a 3 days training, or maybe 2 days training. So we'll get back to you very shortly, right?
Thank you.
So is there any other question? Any other question before we call it a day? So in the absence of no question, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. You can kindly reach out to us on all our social media platforms. So at Facebook, you can reach out to us on Facebook at LASUCBT18, on Twitter, LASUCBT18, Instagram, and also LinkedIn too as well. So you can send us an email, right? Send us an email to send us an email to Fola Babalola for any other inquiry. Fola Babalola at lasucbt18.com, right? So you can also navigate to our website too as well. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining us, and let's do this again next time. Thank you very much.